All right, YouTube, welcome back to my channel about corrupt cops. As you know, we left off last time with part one of my partner's testimony in the Mollen Commission. His testimony runs many, many hours. I have approximately 2 hours of his testimony, and I'm breaking it up into 4 parts, approximately 30 minutes each. So I played part one last week. This is now going to be part two. If you have not yet, please subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, and you'll know when the next part of this video is coming out, part 3. And when any future videos come out, you'll also get a notification for that. Hit the thumbs up button also, please, and leave some comments. Let me know what you think of the testimony, and if you would like more of it, if I could find more of it. I have found testimony of other cops and officials who have testified at the Mollen Commission. One is Ray Kelly, the former police commissioner. I think I saw some of Joe Tromboli, who was the IAD cop. I'm going to try to get some of him. And there's some cops from the 3-0 precinct who, as many people might know, there is a HBO going to be coming out with a miniseries on the 3-0 precinct called the Dirty 30. That's what they were nicknamed back then at the same time. And a bunch of those cops testified at the Mollen Commission also. So we'll have some of that. So again, hit the thumbs up button, hit the notification bell. You'll know when the next part is coming out. Thanks very much, and let's get on with the video.
Yes, Mr. Leslie Kornfeld, Deputy Chief Counsel to the Commission. Ms. Kornfeld, you may proceed.
Yes, Chair. Mr. Dowd, after your summer in Coney Island, when you returned to the 75th Precinct, did you go back expecting to continue business as usual?
No.
Could you tell us what you mean?
Well, when you say go back, you mean to the 75th, right?
That's right.
Okay.
This would be now September of '86.
No, I had a very, well, the 77th Precinct was about to break or had already broken. And the real possibility of my own problems being uncovered were, I thought, at hand. And besides the fact that I was newly married and I had a brand new son, I intended on doing the right things.
Doing the right thing. Your attitude obviously didn't last long, Mr. Dowd. Could you tell us what happened?
Well, what happened was, after I got back to the 75th...
Hold on one moment. You please be quiet in the corner there.
After my arrival back to the 75th Precinct, I had, I thought, a new attitude, and I was hoping to be able to survive a career as a police officer at this point. And I knew it would be difficult, but I didn't think that it would be as difficult as it turned out to be.
Why was it so difficult?
Because many of the police officers there wouldn't work with me for many reasons, and one of the main reasons was because they couldn't believe that I was still on the job.
Why couldn't they believe that you were still on the job? What do you mean?
Well, I think combined with the hysteria from the 77th Precinct and the known activity that myself and all my crew was involved in, being at this point the only one left was really me. Everybody else had either quit the job or was transferred out into different areas.
And that was one of the reasons why people stayed away from you, other cops, when you first returned to the 75th Precinct?
Yeah, well, they didn't know why these people were no longer on the job. They thought maybe I had ratted them out or things of that nature.
So in other words, your reputation as a corrupt cop was so well known at that point that people thought the only way you could still be on the job was if you were working with IAD?
Correct.
Did you eventually get a new partner after you returned to the 75th Precinct?
Yeah, yes, after a lot of, it was quite a while. It was probably about 8 months. It took me 7 or 8 months to get a new partner, maybe even longer.
Would this new partner have been, who was this new partner?
Kenny Eurell.
Did you form a pact with Kenny Eurell similar to the pacts that you had formed with previous partners?
Yes, sir, we did. We had the same agreement as the others.
Could you tell us about the agreement that you reached?
Well, it's funny because he did what they call the Dowd test on me, and he went into a bodega and picked up a couple of beers, and he drank them with me, and just to let me know that he was letting his guard down a little bit. And we sat in the car and we agreed after this little toast that we wouldn't hurt each other and that it's time to do some work together.
And by work together, you mean engage in acts of corruption together?
Yes.
Did you come to any agreement about the seriousness of the acts of corruption that you would commit together at this point in your career?
Well, like I had, the hysteria from the 77th precinct had waned now. You're talking about an 8-month period, maybe 9-month period, and then all the hysteria had gone, and the way it was portrayed in the press was basically these guys were being arrested and prosecuted for minimal charges and minor offenses, and we were astounded that I personally and my whole crew never had the same thing happen to them. But we didn't want to take that risk again and go back into the same, what I'll call petty offense type crimes. So we were looking for bigger opportunities to make money.
Could you tell us, during your first few months together, what kind of acts of corruption were you and your partner engaging in before you went into the bigger and better, as you put it, acts of corruption? Were you testing each other out,
yeah,
even with the corruption?
Well, it was the testing period, and that's one of the instances that I alluded to with Mr. Mollen on the burglary at the house, one of my lowest forms of corruption I ever did, where the woman called her mother, and I took the money out of the house.
And you split that money with your partner, is that what you said?
Yes.
And that was a way to show him, to use your phrase, that you were good?
Yeah, well, what had happened was the day before we had missed $11,000 in another house, and he thought I was setting him up. So I had to, I felt desperate to prove to him that I wasn't setting him up, and that's why I did that.
Were there any other acts of corruption that you engaged in during this period where you were testing each other out that you could share with the commissioners?
Yeah, well, there was, like, the one where we were racing to the jobs. Him, together, we knew that the rare jobs were the good ones. And from that one instance where we were able to take the narcotics, the bag full of narcotics out right past the sergeant and put it in the car, that was a good score and at the time. And
that's the Pine Street example?
Yes.
The day before?
Yes.
You said you were racing to the job. Was it coincidence that you were racing to the job?
No coincidence.
Were you trying to be the first officer on the scene?
Yes, that's why I was racing there.
Why was that?
Because I knew it was going to be a good job. I knew it'd be a money job.
So you could get first dibs?
Yes.
Any other acts during your first few months together that you and your partner committed? Do you recall an incident at Sunnyside?
Yeah. Well, there was an incident where, if I'll describe for the panel the actual scenario, what happened was my partner and I were in the precinct. It was the beginning of a 4 to 12 tour. A young woman had come up to my partner and told him that they just did a drug raid on this location on Sunnyside, and that the officers that did the raid missed some money that was in the ceiling of the home. So he relayed the message to me, and we discussed that we would go back there that night. We were doing a midnight tour. We weren't doing a 4 to 12. We would go back there and try and get in and see if we can get the money that the detectives missed. And what we did was we called up a guy who had quit the job and asked him to be there with us, and we made him, I guess, like an undercover detective. He put his bogus shield out and his gun, and he went in with us, and we basically did a burglary on duty of this house, looking for the money in the ceiling.
How did you do it? Were you calling Central at any time? What happened?
No, what happened was we pre-arranged that we would just go there and do it. And of course, we were on duty, and we had the radios, so if any call came over, we would be able to cover. And eventually a call did come over.
And what happened?
Well, while we were in the house, someone called 911. Now, we thought we took care of that by knocking on all the doors and telling them the police are here and we're going to go do a search warrant on his house. But one of the individuals must have had the music on too loud, and he didn't hear us knocking on the door, so we assumed no one was home. When we went in, after about 5 minutes in the location, I guess a lot of noise was being made. The guy upstairs must have woke up, and he called. What had happened was he was scared. He thought they were coming into his apartment. He didn't know who it was. So he climbed over the building to the neighbor's house. And he was calling from the neighbor's house. So on the radio, we were asking Central, who's making the complaint? We're 84, we're on the scene. Who's making the complaint? So Central called back the callback, which is a number that she gets, and the callback said, we said we were 84. I'm sorry, I'm losing my trend here. We said we were 84. There's no further response necessary. With that, the guy called again. So now we aroused the suspicion of a lot of officers, and they all showed up on the scene. And we happened to be downstairs and in front of the place. We weren't inside. And we said, there's some crazy guy here, must be calling the police for no reason. So Central located the guy on the phone. We went upstairs and we met him. And he was there with his friend. And he said, officer, they're breaking in the apartment next door. I told him, would you stop calling the police? We're here. There's no need to call the police. We've been here for 15 minutes. He said, he didn't know. He's happy that we were there.
Did you make any money? Did you score up that job?
No.
Mr. Dowd, you said that you and your partner had agreed that you were going to graduate into more serious crimes at this point in your career. Did you accomplish that objective? Eventually?
Yes.
How did you accomplish that objective?
Well, what had happened was, through we had a very strong relationship with a local drug dealer. His name was Mr. Perez.
And who is Mr. Perez exactly?
Well, he was an owner of a automobile music shop.
Was he also a major drug trafficker?
That's a very hard question. He was involved in drugs, yes.
And the significance of the relationship then with Mr. Perez is this had marked the point in your career where you had graduated away from street dealers to more serious drug traffickers and drug organizations?
Yes.
Okay, can you tell us about how your relationship with Baron Perez began to develop? In fact, if you could educate us about how a New York City cop first begins to develop a relationship with drug traffickers like this.
Well, it's like the relationship you would develop with anybody in the street that's a businessman. That's how it starts out. You say hello, how was your day, and you go from there. In this situation, he happened to be standing outside in front of his shop with a nice red Corvette, and we caught our ride. There was an attractive lady standing next to it. We stopped to say hello, talk about the car, the girl, whatever was going on there. And shortly thereafter, we had a line of communication opened up, and he began inviting me for a beer. I began inviting him for a beer, and then one thing led to another, and we became like buddies.
While you were becoming buddies, though, there was an understanding that there was a lot that you could do for each other?
Well, it was obvious that his clients were all major drug dealers, and that was one of the reasons we were hanging around there.
Did you test out Baron Perez to see if you could rely on him in the same way or in any way that you had tested out your former partners?
Well, we had given him that bag of drugs that we took from Pine Street.
So he was the way that you fenced or got rid of the drugs from Pine Street?
Yes.
And after that, you knew that you could work together?
Yes. I mean, we just didn't simply hand it to him. We knew before that point that he was good. He wasn't going to hurt us. There's a lot that goes to doing that. You just don't hand it to somebody. You have to have the respect and fear and intimidation that has to go all with it. It's just not simple.
Could you explain that to us?
Explain it. Well, They know we're police officers, they know we're armed with guns, and if they were gonna do any damage to us by whether our career or physically, they know that they'd have to pay the price as well. It'd be the first draw. And it was basically stated that way.
That were you in uniform all those times?
Yes.
In police uniform?
We have a time frame as well for when this happened, Mr. Dowd.
Time frame in year?
Yes.
1987.
Thank you.
So your relationship with Baron Perez begins to develop in 1987, is that correct?
Yes.
Gets rid of drugs for you. What was the first major job that you did through Baron Perez at around this time?
He had a drug dealer come to him who was looking for some kind of protection around the 4th of July weekend in 1987. So what had happened was him and I and Baron were there, and we discussed a few things. A few things transpired, and Baron came to me and said, listen, the guy really wants to pay you money to protect his business. I said, I understand, but there's really not much I can do for him. I'm a patrolman in the blue and white. What can I tell him? So he's a smart guy, this Perez. He says, just lie to him. I said, all right, we'll lie to him. So he said he wants to know if he's safe for the 4th of July weekend. So I used my knowledge of the police department. There's not that many narcotics officers are working on 4th of July weekend. If they are, they're on details, you know, whether it's in Central Park or the boats are coming in or whatever, the beaches are packed with cops. So I said, yeah, you're safe for the weekend. It's a good weekend.
Based on your common knowledge and nothing else, common sense.
Yeah, I had no information.
When you say protecting, could you explain to the commissioners what you meant by protecting?
Well, they think that you're going to give them protection. Like if there's a raid going down, you'll know. If there's cars in the area that are about to do a raid, you'll be able to tip them off. That's protection.
Did you get paid for giving this drug dealer common sense, knowledge?
Yeah, I got paid.
How much did you get paid?
I don't know whether it was $7,000 or $8,000.
Can you tell us, how were you protecting him that weekend? Were you on duty when you were protecting him?
No, I was home in my yard having a barbecue.
Okay. Did you get all the $8,000? The money?
No,
that
he
was owed to
shorted
you?
us a little bit.
So what did you do?
So we sat on his location for about 2 weeks.
Where's his location? Was that out of your sector?
About 3 miles from my sector.
3 miles out of your sector. So what did you do to use your authority as a New York City cop to ensure that you get paid?
I started harassing his business.
So you're sitting on his location, in uniform,
Yep.
while you're on duty,
Yes.
in your RMP,
Yes.
at a drug-prone location for over 2 weeks,
Well, off and on for 2 weeks.
off and on for a period of 2 weeks. So Dowd, did any supervisor ever say to you, Dowd, what are you doing 3 miles out of your sector?
No.
Did anyone ever say to you, hey Dowd, where have you been for the last 2 weeks? Any of the supervisors in your sector?
No.
Was this the first time that you would use your authority as a New York City cop to sit on a drug location, in uniform, in your RMP, to intimidate a dealer into paying you money that he owed you?
Yes, it was the first time.
It was the first. Was it your last?
No.
After that, did you and Mr. Perez reach an agreement, so to speak, about what you could do for each other?
Yes.
Could you tell us about that? Was there any
Dad, before you do that, when you said he shorted you, what amount of money did he give you?
I don't remember if it was $6,300 or $7,300. 7 years ago, 8 years ago.
But you were expecting 8,000, is that it? And he
Yes.
gave, at the end of the 2 weeks, did he make up the difference, or did
Yes.
you have a discussion?
No, he made it up. And there was a lot more to it, sir.
right.
Some idle threats went, and there was a lot to it.
But the chairman raised a good point. By using your authority and intimidating him and sitting on his location, you eventually got paid.
Yes.
You were telling us about the agreement.
It was a drug spot. It was a known drug spot. So we went and, I guess, and the beginning of '85, end of '84. And the individual, we got the call, we arrived, and there was a guy shot in the head. And we noticed it was a drug spot. It was a known drug spot. So we went inside, and there's a pandemonium, of course, because there's a guy shot, there's a guy trying to administer first aid, and he's faking it, and I know he's faking it because he probably shot him, I'm saying to myself. One thing leads to another. We end up searching the premise. I find some money, a couple pounds of reefer. After I found the money, I found another little stack of money of $100 bills. And no one was around, so I put it in my pocket.
And then what happened?
Well, the sergeant arrived on the scene, and after he did an inventory of the place and he counted the money that was being vouchered and took the drugs, he said, "Is that all the money that's here?" And I got nervous, and I took the money out of my pocket and gave it to him.
What did you say to him?
What did I say to him? I said, "Oh, I was holding this. I didn't want anyone to steal it."
And he accepted that?
Yes.
Another way of CYA, Mr. Dowd?
Yeah, sure.
Always having an answer? Did you see that sergeant afterwards, after that incident?
Yes, I did.
And did you have a conversation with him about that incident?
Yes.
Could you tell us what the substance of the conversation was?
Well, we were out at a watering hole on Long Island, a couple of us, and I grabbed him to the side and I said to him, "Sarge, listen, I'm embarrassed about what happened." I says, "But, I'll tell you the truth. I was thinking about keeping the money." And he said, "Well, a few explicits, you idiot," whatever you want to say, without saying the real things he said. He said, "You had it in your pocket. It was yours. You should have kept it."
And this was the sergeant who was meant to be supervising you in the 75th Precinct?
Yes.
You socialized with sergeants, Mr. Dowd? During that time?
Sure.
Did you become friendly with them?
Yes.
Was it difficult, given the social relationship you had, for them to supervise you effectively?
It was more difficult, yes.
What was the message you received as a patrolman when a sergeant tells you, "You idiot, that was yours, you should have kept it"?
I'll never do that again.
That is, never give it back again.
I'll make sure I get what I can before he gets there.
Mr. Dowd, eventually, during your assignment to the 75th Precinct, did you come to be assigned with a regular partner? And here again, I want to emphasize that you should refrain from using the names of these individuals. Did you
Yes.
come to be, yes? Did you, like the other officers, form a pact with this first partner of yours?
Yes.
How did it come about?
While we were in... I'm sorry, can you go back
Yes.
to...
I'm asking you whether with your first partner in the 75th Precinct, your first regular partner,
Right.
did you, like you did with other officers, form a pact with him with regard to corruption matters?
Yes.
Can you tell us, please, what it was?
Well, it's basically simple. We do a little corrupt act together, and from there we know that, you can't tell on me, I can't tell on you, and you better not tell on me, or, there's a price to pay.
Again, this is what's become known as the Dowd test,
Well,
engaging in minor acts of corruption.
Yes, we would drink to start it off.
Did you start to engage with him in more serious forms of corruption and crime?
Yes.
Could you tell the commission, please, what it was you and your partner engaged in?
Well, I had a motorist pay us some money
Motorists paid you money for what?
for not giving him summonses.
Okay. Did you graduate from there with your partner into more lucrative forms of corruption with regard to the narcotics trade in the area?
Well, these are two different partners now.
No, I'm talking about your first regular partner, okay? Did there come a time, Mr. Dowd, when you and a partner of yours decided to profit from the drug dealers
Yes.
in the 75th Precinct?
Yes.
Could you tell us what exactly you planned to do and how you carried it out?
Well, we planned. We sat together in the car. We had a couple of beers. We talked about it. I knew his family from the neighborhood. He knew my family, and we held a strong bond between each other, and we vowed that we would never give each other up, and let's go out and make some money.
Let's go out and make money off the job, right?
Yeah,
So how did you do it? What'd you do?
we shook down drug dealers.
Okay, when you say shake down drug dealers, what does that exactly mean?
It means you get a call to a location, and maybe the third time today, and you're tired of going, so you make the guy pay. You take his proceeds, his cash and his drugs, and and either you take the drugs or throw them out.
Well, why don't you just describe for us an incident perhaps that you remember? So an incident that illustrates how you would get money from a drug dealer without the drug dealer in any way complaining or having any repercussions from you.
Well, it's not that difficult to take money and drugs from any drug dealer. You get a call, you get a description, you show up, he's standing on the corner, he's got drugs, he knows he's going to jail if you want. So instead of sending him to jail, you take his drugs and his money. I mean, I don't think it's very hard to...
Just reach into his pockets and take his drugs and his money.
Yeah.
Did you ever leave him any drugs or any money to keep him happy?
Yeah, sure. You didn't want to get him, too upset with you.
What's the reason for that?
Well, you didn't want to, if he was broke, he'd have to answer to his bosses, so you'd have next time you may have a problem with him. And his boss would tell him, make a complaint on this cop.
So in other words, you would leave him some drugs and money in order to keep him satisfied and perhaps keep him silent about your activities?
Yes, without a doubt.
How often did these shakedowns occur? Let's say in that first year you were working with your partner.
How often in number, or how,
How often? How often in a day? How often in a week?
5 times a day?
Did you have any plans that you made with your partner regarding how much money you and he would like to make off the job?
Yeah, eventually we got so good that we started to set goals on how much money we would get each day.
Let me just stop you there for a minute. When you say you got so good at what? Good at shaking down the drug
Good at shaking
dealers?
them down with no repercussions.
What sort of goals did you and your partner set?
Well, in the beginning we set it moderate, like $200 each a day from the street dealers.
That's moderate.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
And then around the holidays we go up to $500 a day.
Was it easy to make that kind of money? An extra $1,000 a week or an extra $2,500 a week just by shaking down drug dealers?
Yes, very easy.
On what tours would you commit these crimes, Mr. Dowd?
Well, mostly the 4 to 12s, but if the day tours were out there, we'd take them too.
So this could go on any time of day, in broad daylight?
Yeah.
Or under the cover of darkness?
Anytime.
Besides yourself and your partner, were you aware if other police officers assigned to that precinct were engaged in the same kind of crimes?
Yes.
How did you know? What's the basis for your knowledge?
Well, I did them with them.
With other police officers?
Yes.
Is that when your partner wasn't available?
Well, it could be at the same time. We'd all roll up on a spot or a corner or whatever. There may be 20 guys selling on one corner.
And did that happen often? Where a number of radio motor patrol cars would roll up to shake down drug dealers?
Yes.
In your experience and based on your first-hand knowledge, how many police officers were involved in that activity in the 75th Precinct?
I believe I told you earlier about 12, 15.
Okay, the same number that was in your original crew, is that right?
Yes.
Would you also steal drugs from these drug dealers, Mr. Dowd?
Yes.
Would the other officers steal drugs from the drug dealers as well?
Yes. I don't know what they did with it, all of them, but some of them even gave it to us.
Some people have said that this kind of corruption is a matter of opportunity, but what you seem to be saying is that this was premeditated and planned. Is that your experience?
It was a daily basis. It was something that happened daily. It was planned. I don't know if you had to plan that. It was just regular, everyday patrol.
You said you set goals in the amount of money that you wanted to make, correct?
Correct.
That you would pick out certain locations to hit, correct?
Yes.
That you would go to a clandestine location known as the pool to
Yes.
plan this. So what you're talking about here
All
is a
right, guys,
number
so
of
that was
offers.
part 2. Hope you enjoyed it. Part 3 will be coming out in about a week or so. I'll let you guys, enough people watch this one before I come out with part 3 and edit that one. So thanks for watching. I appreciate you guys coming out, and leave some comments, thumbs up, notification bell. Thanks so much for coming by. See you on the next one.